Good day. Welcome to History from St. Paul's, as we continue to discuss and explore the people and events associated with our site. My name is Park Ranger Michael Callahan. Today, we'll be discussing the life of one of our more controversial figures, Frederick Whittaker, who is buried in our historic cemetery. Frederick Whittaker is a Civil War veteran, writer, and the first biographer of Major General George Armstrong Custer. His association with Custer and Custer's widow Elizabeth placed Whittaker at the forefront of the early controversy concerning events at the Battle of the Bighorn on 25 June 1876, where Custer and 267 of his men lost their lives. The controversy continues to this day. Frederick Whittaker was born in London in 1838. He was the son of Henry Whittaker, a solicitor, and Catherine Maitland. The family resided on Chester Street in the Belgravia area of London. Catherine Whittaker had died sometime prior to 1850, the year the remainder of the family immigrated to the United States. This move was prompted when Frederick's father endorsed papers for a noble client who defaulted and placed Henry in a position where he may have been sent to debtor's prison. Henry found employment as a managing clerk in a law firm in New York City. The family resided in Brooklyn. Young Frederick received 6 months of education at a private school and was then placed in a law office under Mr. Ellingwood to be trained as a lawyer. Frederick had no real interest in becoming a lawyer, and eventually was employed by the office of Henry G. Harrison, an architect. A defect in Frederick's eyesight resulted in his leaving the firm. Frederick then considered becoming a writer, and just prior to the outbreak of the Civil War, he had an article published in the Great Republic monthly. He had found his true vocation. The outbreak of the war in April of 1861 resulted in Frederick's enlistment in the 6th New York Cavalry. After an initial period of training at Camp Scott on Staten Island, the 6th deployed first to York, Pennsylvania, then to Virginia, for service in the Washington, D.C. area, along with service in the Army of the Potomac and the Army of the Shenandoah. The 6th fought in over 150 small and large actions through the war, including the 7 Days Battles, Antietam, Gettysburg, and the Battle of the Wilderness in 1864, where Whittaker suffered a gunshot wound to one of his lungs. He recovered in January of 1865, was commissioned as a second lieutenant. Sometime after that date, he was reported as being captured and was paroled on 22 April of 1865. He was discharged from service in August of that year. Between 1865 and 1869, Whittaker worked as an agent and as a school teacher. In 1869, he began writing for Onward magazine and Frank Leslie's story paper. He married Elizabeth May Houston at St. Paul's Church in 1870 and established his home in Mount Vernon, New York, with funds inherited from an English relative. He also continued to write for a number of other magazines. Whittaker's stories were based on some of his experiences in the Civil War, as well as adventure stories that later become known as dime novels and pulp fiction. On the more serious side, he became the National Guard editor and later assistant editor of the Army and Navy Journal. In either late 1875 or early 1876, he met Brevet Major General, by then Lieutenant Colonel, George Armstrong Custer in New York City. Although both had served in one of the cavalry divisions of the Army of the Potomac, neither had met until that time. Custer was the type of individual Whittaker wrote about, the gallant cavalier and Victorian-era hero fighting against overwhelming odds for right and justice. By June of 1876, Custer and his assigned regiment, the 7th United States Cavalry, were operating the command of General Alfred Terry in Montana as part of a campaign to force the return of Sioux and Cheyenne Indians to their reservations. On the morning of 25 June, Custer's scouts had located a large village and Custer made the decision to attack. His plan of attack included dividing the 7th into 3 battalions. One was commanded by Major Marcus Reno, one by Captain Frederick Whittaker, with Custer remaining in command of the 3rd Battalion. One company was detailed to guard the pack train, which also contained additional ammunition. After the initial fight in the Little Bighorn Valley, Major Reno withdrew to a series of bluffs and was joined by Captain Benteen's battalion in the pack train. Custer's battalion, now isolated and cut off from the remainder of the regiment, was eventually overwhelmed by the Sioux and Cheyenne with no survivors. Reno and Benteen held out for 2 days, so they were relieved by a column commanded by General Terry and Colonel John Gither on 27 June. The defeat of the Little Bighorn and the death of Custer and a large portion of his command shocked the nation. Within 6 months of Custer's death, Whittaker, with the assistance of Custer's widow Elizabeth, and completed his Life of Major General George Armstrong Custer. My biography casts Custer in a strong image as, quote, a great man, one of the few really great men that America has produced. In addition, Whittaker, along with Elizabeth Custer and other Custer supporters, cast blame for the defeat on Major Reno, and to a certain extent Captain Benteen for not fully supporting Custer, with additional claims of cowardice by both. Whittaker may have been attempting to secure his friend's reputation, while also increasing sales of his book. Major Reno finally had enough of their claims and demanded a court of inquiry which was held in Chicago in early 1879. Whittaker was president of the inquiry and still persisted in his claims against Reno and Benteen. Earlier, he had also pressured Captain Weir, another survivor, to sign a statement Weir regarded as inaccurate. Weir refused to sign it. The court cleared Reno of all charges, much to the dismay of Elizabeth Custer and Frederick Whittaker. Whittaker's reputation also began to suffer, with Captain Benteen referring to Whittaker as an impecunious quill driver, also stating that the Custer biography was one of the most stupendous advertising schemes of this or any other age. By trying to place attention on both Reno and Benteen, Whittaker also brought attention upon himself, which much of it not favorable from either within the Army or even his own hometown. Whittaker by the 1870s had claimed to hold the rank of brevet captain of war after the Civil War, probably as an attempt to enhance his military credentials and support his writing career. In 1884, a Mount Vernon resident stated to the New York Times that Whittaker only held the rank of second lieutenant and that he was a crank. One of the individuals making the claim is the editor of the Mount Vernon Argus. There is no official record of the brevet rank being granted. Whittaker continued to write, and one of the most successful authors of the dime novels of the late 19th century. In spite of Captain Benteen's remarks regarding the Custer biography, the book sold well and is still utilized for research by historians today. He also became involved with social and cultural life in the Mount Vernon community. He helped found the Westchester Historical Society and was a member of the Grand Army of the Republic. By the mid to late 1880s, Whittaker also became involved in spiritualism. His behavior was seen by some to be erratic, but by others to be his passion. He also began to slide into debt. On 13 May 1889, Whittaker returned home from his office at the Mount Vernon Record. After greeting his wife, Whittaker began climbing the stairs leading to his bedroom. He may have tripped or caught his cane in the banister. Whatever happened resulted in his pistol discharge and inflicted a mortal wound to his head. He died a half hour later, leaving a wife, 3 daughters, and a stepson. He was buried in St. Paul's churchyard, his wife joining him there 36 years later. The controversy and mystery of Frederick Whittaker's life and death is mirrored in the ongoing controversy of the Battle of the Bighorn, and the death of his friend, George Armstrong Custer. Thank you for being with us today. Please join us again next week for more History from St. Paul's.